At the hospital, after my emergency surgery, I woke up groggy and confused. My husband wasn't there. My sister was. She looked me in the eye and said, "He left." Said this was too much. I spent weeks recovering alone. He never answered my calls. 3 months later, I found out they'd moved in together 2 days after my surgery. When I confronted them, she said, "I saved him from you." I never spoke to either again. But last week, she showed up at my door with a black eye and a baby on her hip. He's gone. I have nowhere else to go. 3 years ago, my life fell apart in one night. It started with pain in my stomach that got worse fast. By the time I got to the hospital, I couldn't stand up straight. They told me my appendix had ruptured and I was going septic. I needed emergency surgery or I'd die. They rushed me in. I don't remember much after that. I remember being scared. I remember asking the nurse if they'd called my husband, David. I remember her nodding. And then nothing. When I woke up, everything felt heavy. My body hurt. My mind was foggy. I looked around the hospital room expecting to see David. He wasn't there. Instead, I saw my sister, Lacey, sitting in the chair near the window. She wasn't smiling. Her arms were crossed. She looked like she didn't want to be there. "Where's David?" I asked. My throat was dry. My voice sounded strange. She didn't look at me right away, just stared ahead. Then she said, "He left." "What?" He said this was too much. "He's gone." I waited for her to say more, to explain, to say it was temporary. But she didn't. I thought maybe she was joking. I even laughed a little, thinking the meds were messing with me. But the look on her face never changed. I kept asking. She kept saying the same thing. He left. The next few days were a blur. No visitors. No calls. No texts. David was gone. Lacey stayed the night once more, brought me a book I never read, then left and never came back. I stayed in the hospital for another week. Recovery was rough. The infection had done some damage and I could barely move without pain. I was weak and confused and alone. I called David every day, left messages, begged him to talk to me. Nothing. When I was finally discharged, no one came to pick me up. A hospital volunteer gave me a ride home. I sat in the back seat in silence, holding a plastic bag with my medicine and paperwork. When I walked into our apartment, it still smelled like him. His coat was hanging by the door. His favorite coffee mug was on the kitchen counter. I thought maybe this meant he'd be back. He wasn't. Days passed. Then weeks. I tried Lacey too. She wouldn't answer. Wouldn't text back. I couldn't understand what had happened. David and I had been solid. At least I thought we were. We weren't perfect, but we had plans. We were trying for a baby before all this. He told me he loved me every morning. He called me his anchor. Then nothing. No goodbye. No explanation. Just gone. 3 months later, I was finally strong enough to go out on my own again. I had a routine, small errands, short walks. One day I went to Safeway to get some groceries. That's when I saw them. David and Lacey. Together. They were walking down the baby aisle. She was pushing the cart. He had his arm around her. She picked up a bottle and smiled up at him like they were some perfect little couple. I froze. It didn't feel real. I couldn't breathe. I wanted to scream but couldn't even move. She saw me first. Her eyes went wide. Then she smirked. David turned, looked right at me, and didn't even flinch. Like I was a stranger. Like none of it mattered. Lacey walked over to me. I stood there, shaking. She leaned in and whispered, "I saved him from you." Then she turned her back on me and walked away. They left the store, hand in hand. I stood in the aisle with tears streaming down my face. I never spoke to either of them again. Until last week. It was raining. I had just gotten home from work and was heating up soup when someone knocked on my door. I opened it, and there she was. Lacey. She looked wrecked. Hair messy. Clothes soaked. One eye bruised, so bad it was almost swollen shut. She was holding a baby on her hip. She didn't say hello. She didn't look sorry. She said, "He's gone. I have nowhere else to go." And I knew right then that this was the moment I had waited for. She thought I'd help her. She thought I was still that woman she left in a hospital bed. But I'm not. Not anymore. I didn't say anything. I just stood in the doorway and stared at her. She shifted the baby on her hip and said, "Please." Her voice cracked. She looked tired, desperate. I wanted to slam the door in her face. I wanted to scream at her, tell her to go to hell, remind her how she stabbed me in the back when I was half dead. But I didn't. I stepped aside. She walked in. Not because I forgave her, but because I wanted to know everything. She sat on my couch like she belonged there. The baby, her daughter, I assumed, was about 10 months old. Big brown eyes. Tufts of curly hair. She looked nothing like David. I brought out a towel and handed it to her. She wiped her face, but didn't say thank you. I sat across from her and waited. She finally spoke. "He left last week. Said he couldn't deal with me anymore. He didn't take anything. Just packed a bag and walked out. I haven't heard from him since." I nodded slowly. "And what about your eye?" She hesitated. "We got into a fight." "Did he hit you?" She didn't answer. Just looked away. I took a deep breath. "Why are you here, Lacey?" "I have nowhere else to go." "You have friends." They all sided with him. I laughed, cold and bitter. "Kind of like how you sided with him when I was in the hospital." She flinched. "You know what I remember?" I said, "waking up after surgery and asking for my husband. And you telling me, like it was nothing, that he left. Then you were gone too." She didn't speak. "I called you. Over and over." "I know," she said softly. I couldn't. I didn't know what to say. "You knew exactly what you were doing." The baby started fussing. Lacey rocked her gently. "I was stupid," she said. "He told me you were cold. Controlling. That you made him feel small." I believed him. He said he felt trapped and I thought I was saving him. But he wasn't who I thought he was. "You thought you were the hero in your little love story." I was wrong. "You betrayed your sister," I said. "You left me to rot in a hospital bed and moved in with my husband 2 days later." She looked at me with tears in her eyes. "I know. I regret it every single day." I stood up. "Get out." She blinked. "What?" "You heard me. Get out. I have a baby. Not my problem." She stood up, crying now. "Please. Just let me stay one night. Just so I can figure out where to go." I stared at her. The bruises. The baby. Her pathetic, broken face. And then I said, "Fine. One night. But you sleep on the couch." That night, I watched her sleep from the hallway. And I knew what I had to do. I wasn't going to help her. I wasn't going to hurt her either. I was going to make her live with everything she did. I was going to take what she loved most and make her feel what I felt. But not with violence. Not with anger. With silence. And control. I started making calls the next morning. The next morning, I got up early. Lacey was still asleep on the couch, the baby curled up against her. I stood in the kitchen, drinking my coffee, watching the two of them through the doorway. I didn't feel pity. Not even a little. I felt cold. Focused. She'd left me at the lowest point in my life. She moved in with the man I married while I was still recovering from surgery. And now she wanted shelter? Help? She wanted me to play the hero? No. But I wasn't stupid. Throwing her out wouldn't give me peace. Not the kind I needed. This had to hurt. So I made my first call to my old friend Dina, who worked at Child Protective Services. We hadn't talked in years, but Dina owed me a favor. I helped her get out of a toxic marriage once. We met later that day at a diner, and I told her everything. "I'm not making things up," I said. "The baby's safe for now. But her mom is living on someone's couch with no job, no place to go, and a history of domestic violence. Dina nodded slowly. If what you're saying is true, we'll open a case. Good. And the dad? He's worse. She said he hit her, then abandoned them both. Got it. She slid a napkin over to me with a case number on it. Don't worry, she said. We'll follow up. That was step 1. Step 2. I checked my credit. Sure enough, I found a few new inquiries I didn't recognize. Someone had tried to open a furniture account in my name just 2 months after I left the hospital. Guess who? I filed a report, gathered the records, and went down to the police station. Fraud. Identity theft. Enough to make things real hard for Lacey once charges started moving. I didn't need her arrested. I just needed the weight to start piling on. Back home, I acted like nothing had changed. I made coffee. We talked. I let her use my shower and eat my food. I'm so grateful, she kept saying. I know I don't deserve this. She was right. She didn't. I waited until the 3rd day before asking the question. So, what happened between you and David? Really? She looked down. He started staying out late. Then he got rough. Mean. Controlling. One night, I asked if he still loved me and he said, I never loved either of you. I just didn't want to be alone. Then he hit me. I raised my eyebrows. Sounds familiar. She swallowed hard. Yeah. I wanted to scream. You knew what he was when you took him from me. But I kept my face blank. Later that day, she asked to borrow my laptop to check job listings. I let her. But what she didn't know was that I'd already installed a tracker. I watched every site she visited, every desperate email she sent. I even saw her log into her old email, an account still linked to the joint Amazon account she once shared with David. I reset the password, changed the recovery email, took it over completely. Now I had access to their entire shared purchase history, old messages, photos. I learned things she didn't even know I knew, like the fact that David had cheated on her, too. Twice. Once with a bartender in Phoenix during a business trip. Once with someone named Bree who sent photos I wish I'd never seen. And I printed all of it. Every message. Every receipt. Every lie. And I waited for the perfect time to show her. I didn't want to break her spirit. I wanted to shatter it. She stayed with me for 9 days. On the 10th morning, she woke up to find her life laid out on my kitchen table. Emails, receipts, photos of David with other women, copies of the credit report with her name all over the fraudulent activity, a CPS business card, and on top of it all, the note I had written in thick black ink, "You saved him from me. Who's going to save you now?" She stared at the pile, her hands shaking. I walked in behind her, coffee in hand. "You went through my stuff?" she whispered. "No," I said. "I went through your life." She backed away from the table like the papers could bite. "I'm calling the cops," she said. "I already did. They'll be here soon." Her eyes filled with tears. "You said I could stay." I said 1 night. You stayed 9. The baby started crying in the other room. Lacey didn't move. I kept going. "CPS is opening a case. You'll have to explain why you let your daughter live with a man who beat you. A man who abandoned her. A man you left your own sister for." She started sobbing. "Please. You don't understand. I didn't know what? That he'd do to you what he did to me? You thought you were different? Special?" She dropped into the chair, crying harder. "You could have helped me when I was in that hospital," I said. "But you didn't. You walked away. You let me rot. You built your life on the back of my pain." "I made a mistake," she said through sobs. "I thought he loved me." "No. You loved the way it felt to take him from me." The knock came then. 2 officers at the door. And Dina, from CPS. Lacey looked up at me in horror. "You're really doing this?" I didn't answer. The officers read her the fraud charges. Dina held the baby gently, already cooing to her. Lacey screamed and begged. She looked at me like I had murdered her. They let her out in cuffs. I stood in the doorway, silent. Watching her go felt quiet, like the world had been holding its breath for years and finally exhaled. I didn't celebrate. I didn't smile. Because the truth is, I wasn't innocent either. I let my anger grow. I let it turn cold. I let it shape every move I made. And maybe, just maybe, I'd gone too far. But when I saw that little girl in Dina's arms, I knew one thing for sure. The cycle was broken. Lacey lost everything. And David? I heard he ran off to Nevada, living in some motel with a new girl. Probably spinning the same lies. But now I was done chasing ghosts. Let him rot. Me? I moved on. I started volunteering at a women's shelter. Got into therapy. Got stronger. And every now and then, I walk past the hospital where I almost died. And I remember how betrayal feels. But I remember something else, too. Survival tastes better when you serve it cold.